Welcome. We have an incredible and inspirational guest with us today, and I'm going to introduce him in just a minute. But the Pressing Limits podcast, we want to talk to you how it gets here, who it's brought to you by. ZionMissionaryChurch.net. And that's where you can listen and watch messages, you can share prayer requests, all kinds of interaction that can happen there. And then also by NeuroPowerSource.com. Now, this is resources for your mind, your body, your spirit. There's discount codes for all the equipment and biohacking gear I use, like the Be Strong blood flow restriction cuffs, which are especially useful right now for those of you who can't get to the gym, and all kinds of other tools to help you along your journey. Okay, let's rock and roll. Our guest today is Kaleigh Schrock. He's a Fort Wayne native. He played his youth and high school hockey in the city before leaving for the juniors. Kaleigh then captained the Neumann University program to a Division III national championship before returning to Fort Wayne as part of the ECHL Fort Wayne Komets. Kaleigh played 439 games over 6 seasons for the Komets, collecting 81 goals, 152 points, and 854 penalty minutes. He was regarded as a speedy, tenacious forward and something of an underdog. Schrock was named the Komets Rookie of the Year for the 2009-2010 season, and he was part of that season's International Hockey League Championship winning team. Schrock was also a member of the Central Hockey League Championship winning team in 2011 and 2012 season. Schrock captained the Komets from the late 2013 season until his retirement in 2015. After his professional playing career, Schrock stayed in Fort Wayne to oversee the youth programs at the SportONE Parkview Icehouse, as well as the Trine University rink, where he was also the assistant arena manager. Kaleigh also found the time to coach the Summit City Panthers to an Indiana State high school championship. Schrock is now the first head coach of the Fort Wayne Spacemen of the United States Premier Hockey League. The Fort Wayne Komets inducted Kaleigh along with Doc Emmerich into the Komets Hall of Fame on March 7th, 2020. That being said, as part of a formal introduction, I want to say that I personally witnessed Kaleigh on the ice over the course of his career. He played with passion, he played with heart, and a bulldog tenacity. He also really, I could say every time, left it all on the ice. So Kaleigh, a.k.a. Schrocky Balboa, welcome to the show.
Wow, thank you for that introduction. I don't know if that's totally deserved, but I'll take it. I'm glad to be here and excited for the show.
Yeah, very well deserved. And we're going to ask a lot of great questions today. I'm hoping that you can really expound on them to let people kind of on the inside of what it's like to be a professional hockey player and coach.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope to give the audience a ton of insight. Obviously, I'm very blessed to have been able to play at the pro level and especially do it in my hometown. And now I've kind of come full circle, right, with my hockey director role and the coaching role. So that's what it's all about. I hope this is an entertaining podcast and our listeners can take something away.
Awesome. So let's start off. How did you begin your hockey journey?
It's a good question, and really a random deal. I was in first grade. My first grade teacher, Tina Samuels, who actually shared the same birthday as myself, and she passed out it was a McMillan Parks, which was run by the city. It was an activity sheet of all the activities that you could do at McMillan, and one of those activities was ice skating. And so I took the paper home. It was random as a first grader. I'm sure a lot of that stuff went in the waste basket or was crumpled up at the bottom of my book bag and it would be thrown away. But for whatever reason, that day, my parents saw it, and I talked to them. I wanted to go skating. And at the time, there was a Glenbrook Mall. The mall in Fort Wayne had an ice rink where the food court is now. If any of the listeners have ever been to the mall in Fort Wayne, and my mom said, we're not going to sign you up for skating unless you like it. So my mom took me out to the mall, and we went public skating, and I absolutely loved it, and signed up at the IP program in McMillan. And I remember this my teacher coming out and watching me, and as a 6-year-old, I thought it was like the coolest thing on earth, right? When your teacher's there, in first grade, you think your teachers live at the school, right? I'll never forget it, being 6 and like taking my first steps, and the ice just seemed like it was just this huge surface, and taking my first steps. And I remember not wanting to fall down, right? I've always been competitive, and just I remember it like it was yesterday, and how much it meant that my teacher was there to kind of support me, and that's how I got started. And from there, I got started in the house program. It took me a year before I was ready to be eligible for the house league. So back then, times have changed a little bit now. Everybody wants instant satisfaction, and it's much harder to teach the process about becoming good or great at something, or the process of learning a new skill. And that's a whole nother conversation. But I was in the IP program for a year, and I'll never forget the day we were driving up to the lake, and there was a few evaluations that I failed to get into the league. And all I remember as a 7-year-old was, when can I play my first game, Mom and Dad? And I'll never forget, we were driving up to the lake, and it was like a Friday, and my mom was pulling into the bank with my dad, and we were going to head up Maple Crest on I-69. And we got a phone call from one of the directors in the program, and they said, Kaleigh is ready for the league. And I remember that summer, I just wanted it to end so I could play on a team in the fall. And, that's how it all started. So I remember it like it was yesterday.
It's very cool. And what a journey. And I didn't give you these in the questions ahead, but you also had a love for baseball at the time, true, right?
Oh, I love baseball. Yeah, I actually, the cat's out of the bag now, where people are going to be listening. But baseball is actually, if I could do it all over again, I probably, would have maybe entertained that. I got to play a little bit in college. Was never able to play in high school because of the hockey schedule, but I've just grown very fond of the game, and always been a big fan of baseball. Yeah, so definitely a 2-sport athlete growing up.
Awesome. So did you have any heroes or people that inspired you along the way? I mean, you started out so young. Who inspired you along the way? What were your heroes, or who were your heroes, and how did that inspire you to keep going on?
Yeah, when I was younger, and still am to this day, I was a Blackhawks fan. So obviously Jeremy Roenick, was a guy that I've always liked and looked up to, and tried to model my game around his, as far as being a gritty player. Obviously, being a Komet fan and being in Fort Wayne, there were guys like Colin Chalk, right? That he was a hometown guy, kind of a smaller player, very skilled. He was an underdog, and I kind of fell in love with him. And I would say those two, as far as the hockey world, were probably the two guys that I really looked up to when I was younger. In fact, my dad took me to old Chicago Stadium. This was back when they didn't have the net, right? The netting behind the over the glass, and Jeremy Roenick actually flipped me a puck in warm-ups. And
yeah.
I still have that sucker. And I remember my first Komet game. It was actually Halloween, and I was dressed up like a vampire or something. And Bruce Boudreau flipped me a puck when he played for the Komets back, I think it was in the early '90s. And now his kid's coaching the Komets, and I played against this kid my rookie season, Benny, against Flint, and Bruce was he was in the stadium, and he actually personally invited me to Hershey's camp the next year, and that was the year the NHL was locked out. So it was just so cool how, everything kind of comes together in the end. But the guy that flipped me a puck when I was just getting involved in hockey turned out to be the guy that gave me an invite, who was the head coach of the Washington Capitals at the time, to Hershey's camp in the AHL. So just very lucky to be in the right spot at the right time, I guess.
Yeah, and we'll forgive you for being a Blackhawks fan. As a Red Wings fan, I can say that. But, there's something about those old arenas, too. You talk about that, and I think about the Joe. And then I was raised in Davison, Michigan. We were right by Flint there. And so going to the old IMA, to watch the Generals, Spirits, Bulldogs, and then Generals again in the IHL too, there was something unique about those old barns for sure.
Oh, no doubt. And, playing in some of those places, it's a great environment. And I always appreciated some of those older rinks that, maybe don't quite look as good to the average fan, or I guess aren't what's the word, aesthetically pleasing. But I found that I always played better in some of those older rinks where it felt like it was hockey. It felt real. And unfortunately, when the Komets made their transition to the ECHL, majority of the rinks you're playing in are relatively new and don't quite have that nostalgic feeling like the Port Huron and playing it in Dayton, Muskegon. Some of the rinks that I played in my rookie year. Kalamazoo obviously still has a little bit of that touch, where it feels like old time hockey, if you will. And so definitely there is a beauty with some of those old places. You're absolutely right.
Which leads me to my next question. Now, this is really unique that you got to play in the IHL, the CHL, and then the ECHL. What were the differences in the leagues, the style of play, and did you have to make any adjustments as the team transitioned to these different leagues?
Yeah, definitely had to make adjustments. I think, when I came in my rookie year, the IHL, there were true professionals that maybe knew the game, and the IQ was fairly high. What helped me survive is, the vet rule wasn't at 4, so you had some older guys that were veteran players that were really smart players that maybe didn't have the legs. And one thing that I was blessed with, maybe not the prettiest skater, but and not to pump my own tires, but I was probably the fastest guy that I've ever been on the ice with, just straight down the ice. Like if there's a race from the goal line to goal line, there was not many players that I played with that could beat me. Unfortunately, hockey is played east-west too, and that was a skill that I lacked, was my east-west skating. But I think that helped me survive in the IHL, where it was a little bit more of a slower pace game, but guys were great at moving the puck. It was more puck possession. The next year, with the Central League, that would have been my second year pro. You could definitely see it was guys that were a little bit younger, but it was still a mixture of some of those guys in the IHL. So what you had was kind of a mixture of both. The game it got a little bit faster, but there was still some of that veteran savviness that you saw night in, night out. Obviously guys like Colin Chalk and Robinson from Muskegon. Those guys were still around and just knew how to play the game and And then when you saw it transition to the ECHL, the game became a lot faster. There were younger players, and to me, it felt honestly a lot like college hockey. It felt like, man, these were all young kids that are trying to, make an impression. They're maybe not the smartest players in the world, but they work really hard. And for me, that was probably not the best environment for me to play in, as far as it kind of took away one of my strengths, which was my speed. And obviously when you're playing with guys that are younger and they're fast, that was part of my game that kind of set me apart from some of the guys. And I was never the most skilled guy in the world, so I needed every advantage I could get. So the game definitely got faster. And I'll tell you what, it's a hell of a lot faster, excuse my language, than it is now, than it was even when I retired in 2015. And I can attest that I actually played a few games. I played one game, not last season, but the year before with Brampton, and just kind of an emergency appearance where Colin Chalk was coaching, and they had a game in Kalamazoo. I actually did it twice for them, and I noticed that, obviously I hadn't played in a few years, but the game was much faster, and it's apparent that this day and age, the game is headed towards more of a skill game and a speed game. And there's actually, I was talking to Doc Emmerich about this. He had mentioned that we were talking about the speed and how fast the game's gotten. And Eddie Olchuk, actually, I found this fascinating, actually told Doc Emmerich that he thinks the game is too fast, right? And it's there are some of the there's some of the art within the game that that you're seeing that's going away because of just how fast the game is being played. So, I don't know. You can chew on that and do with it what you will, but I kind of found that take a little fascinating.
Yeah, because it's real interesting. When I was a kid, we go watch the games, and that was back in the day when, you couldn't have a 2-line pass. And so things just, develop. Now the middle line doesn't mean anything. It's just different. And one of the things I always appreciated about you is, this is before no-touch icing, is just the speed. You talk about an all-out hustle. I remember sitting there and just watching and saying, this guy's going after it every time. He never mails it in. And, I know that they've brought in no-touch icing now to, alleviate injuries. But you always miss that hustle. You used to watch guys, they would do anything to get to that puck. And, Schrocky, that's one of the things we always have appreciated about you is, you always hustled it every time. And, yeah, the game has changed, and it's just different watching. It's a different experience. I think it's evolving. But I do miss some of the things that used to happen, the things that used to happen around the middle of the ice and all the work that it took to get it into the zone. It's definitely a different game for sure. One of the things I'm really curious about, because a lot of people can't even fathom what this is like. You guys did a lot of road trips, a lot of bus trips. What was life like on the road? And you got any good road stories? It's just crazy to think about. You play a game on the road, you got to get up, do morning skates, all that stuff. What was life like on the road?
Yeah, it's fun. I think that's what most guys miss, right? Is just the time you spend with your teammates, and obviously there's less distractions, but you're just with your team, and that's the fun part about playing hockey. I think that's why a lot of guys play at the minor league level for so long, is that that they enjoy that time with the guys. And yeah, there was a lot of great stories from being on the road. And I'll never forget, I was very fortunate to be able to play when Chaser was calling games. And Bob Chase, obviously legend, broadcaster for the Fort Wayne Komets. His actually, a little shout out to Chaser. His wife actually just passed away and joined him in heaven. So,
yep.
Say a prayer for for Chaser. But I remember, listening to Bob on WoWo, and, he would be on the bus, and he would tell just great stories. And I'll never forget, Bob was, at the end, he didn't move so well. And he's obviously an older guy, and we're out one night and we're having, a few drinks after, like a 3-3 in Florida. And it's probably like 1:30 or 2 in the morning, and we look out and we see Chaser on the dance floor, and it's like, it was like, like obviously, I wanted to get my phone out and take a picture, but what happens on the road kind of stays on the road.
Yeah.
But I'll never forget that. And then just remember, and like a few of the guys walking back with Chaser, who could, the guy could barely stand up, but just talking about just a hockey guy through and through. It didn't, being in his 80s didn't stop him from coming out and having some drinks with the team. And that's why everybody loved him. I mean, but I'll never forget that. And that was one that always made me laugh, and that I was appreciative of, that, I got to share that experience with him. But, oh yeah, there's so many great stories. I mean, just from being on the road and the pranks. I remember one time, this is when we signed John Morasti, and we were in a Florida. I think they used to air it on Comcast when the Komets had their on-demand deal with. You might still be able to find this somewhere if you're lucky. You'd have to talk to John as Scott Sprout. He probably has the video on his hard drive because that guy saves everything. But we were in an airport, and one of the guys got like that clear floss, and we put like a $5 or $10 bill on the floss, and just hiding behind the seats, and as people reached down to grab the bill, we'd obviously pulled away, and we just doing stuff like that, and pranking people, putting shaving cream in guys' socks and are on their towel, just those little things that you look back and you think how silly and stupid they were, but just that's the beauty of the game. You get to do you get to be a little kid when you're 25 and 30 years old, and goof off sometimes, and it makes your job so much fun.
Yeah, those things kind of bond the team together, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's times where obviously your teammates kind of they can tick you off. I remember Charlie Effinger, he was a goalie from Missouri. Then we signed him the next year, and the guy, we were in a prank. We were in kind of a prank war, and we got back from Elmira, and he put skin lube, like what you put on your face, or if you get you get some irritation, you put that skin lube on. Some guys actually put it on their face when they fought, so like almost what boxers would wear. And Charlie put that stuff on my windshield, and we got back, and it was like 3 a.m. It had snowed on top of it and froze, and it was like frozen into my windshield. And I remember like driving home, and there was like one little spot about the size of a dime that I could see through, and I'm driving like 7 miles per hour all the way home because I couldn't see through. I couldn't get the stuff off, and when I ran my wipers, it like smeared the skin lube into my windshield. And I remember I was never more ticked off at a guy. But now when you look back, you kind of laugh. And to Charlie's credit, he came over the next day, and we had about a 5-6 hour day trying to get that stuff off my windshield. It was not fun. So never attempt that one, because it's not a good prank.
Was there ever any revenge pranks, like, where it's like, you guys did this, now you're going to pay? Was there any of those type of things?
Oh yeah. I mean, there was a lot of that. In fact, I remember, Cody Soul, he was a guy that he was fun because you could really get under his skin. And, I remember, I don't know if you remember Konstantin Shafranov, but he was one of our assistant coaches at the time. And I knew Shappy because I played with him my rookie year, and I also watched him play when I was like in high school, and watched him growing up and remember cheering for him. So I had known Shappy for a long time, and I became good friends with him. And Cody viewed him as kind of like an assistant coach, and I remember one time, just joking around on the ice where Cody was relatively new to the team, and he had been complaining that he wasn't on the power play. Because every time he took a shot, it went, 5 feet over the net. And so they took him off the power play, and he was, kind of complaining to me about it. So I skated right over to Shappy right in front of, Cody, I'm like, Shappy, Cody wants to be on the power play. Can you put him back on? And Cody didn't like that very much. And, it kind of embarrassed him. And I remember him, he took one of my sticks during practice, and he kind of hucked it over the jokingly, but he hucked it over the glass, right? So I had to go get my backup, and I thought, you know what? I was in the room grabbing another stick, and I took some of that skin lube, and I rubbed it. I put it on Cody's his two backup sticks. So I went out, grabbed Cody's stick from him, and hucked it in the stands, knowing he would go and grab one of his sticks. Well, Cody, God love the guy. He's not the smartest, he's not the smartest kid in the world. And so he grabs his stick, and, he's trying to take shots, and he can't, take a shot because his gloves have skin lube all over them, and his hands are slipping. Well, he yells at me, he says, "Schrock, you put skin lube on my gloves." And I'm like looking at him like, "Cody, like, you had your gloves on the whole time, right?" So Cody gets his other set of gloves from Joe, grabs his other backup stick that's got skin lube on it, and now he's got skin lube on both sets of gloves and all of his sticks. And I had to get off the ice that day because I thought he was going to fight me. But those are just the times that you miss. And but definitely there was definitely some stuff like that going on. But although I will say, you never do want to mess with guys' equipment. You know what I mean? But
Yep.
That day he threw my stick over the glass, so it was all out war at that point. But you try to stay away from guys' equipment as much as you can.
And that's so interesting that you mentioned that about sticks, because something that I've heard of is that guys actually name their sticks. And did you ever have any names for your sticks?
Oh, I would name every stick. I really would. And it would just be whatever I was into at that time. If I was watching Game of Thrones, my stick might have been named Tyrion. It didn't matter. But I would always name my sticks, and just for fun. And I was never really I wasn't too superstitious. I would say I just like to have fun with the game. It wasn't a thing where if I didn't name my stick, I didn't think I was going to score a goal, because if I was counting my goals, I would have been depressed a long time ago. So it wasn't one of those deals. It was just more of just having fun. But yeah, there's definitely some guys that were really quirky, and the superstition stuff definitely got to them.
Did you ever see anybody do things like, put their stick in a garbage can to get a garbage goal, or take different trips to the arena, go drive a different way, or something when they were in a slump?
Yeah, I remember there was actually, I won't say any names, but I remember there was actually a guy who would, if he didn't have a good period, he would actually shower. He would actually take off his equipment, shower, and put his stuff back on. And wow. Just like a fresh start. I think I remember Leo one time getting real ticked, Leo Thomas, and throwing his stick in the garbage. Not because he wanted a garbage goal, just because he was ticked off or for whatever reason. But yeah, he definitely played with some guys that were definitely superstitious. I know Colin Chalk is real particular about his equipment. right? Like he would be a guy that, everything had to be perfect. And that's what a lot of fans don't, they forget about hockey is one of the tough things as a player is if you are really particular, there's so many variables to the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like your stick length. If you didn't I remember there's times where, I would go on the ice for warm-ups and my stick would feel like it was too tall, right? And it was like and it might have been, I don't know, I could never figure out what it was. I don't know if it was like the way I stretched or if it was the ice, like if the ice was softer, right? And maybe my steel was going deeper into the ice. So my stick was, because when you're on the ice every day, you feel those little things that, they stick out, right? And you notice them. And I remember at the beginning of the year, my stick would be like right about at my nose. And by the end of the year, if I measured my stick, it'd be like almost below my chin because I would shave a little bit off like each weekend, or if it felt too long, and it got to be absurd. And I remember one time talking to Chalker about it. He's like, man, I had the same issue. He's like, here's what I did. Cause Chalker was smarter than me. He would cut off a butt end and put it at the top of his stick, like a small one. And then if his stick felt too tall or, too long, I should say, he would heat up the butt end and just shorten his stick by a centimeter where his stick felt great. So he wasn't always cutting his stick. Then if it felt too short, he just heat it up and, obviously just slide that butt end up a bit to make his stick, get more length out of his stick. But I remember that always just driving me bonkers, like feeling like, I could use the same stick and it would feel different size every time I touched the ice. I still couldn't tell you why it did that, but I know that's like a common thing. And, you think you get your skate sharpened 2 or 3 times and you lose a little bit of steel. So, there's just a lot of variables. Your stick, if you have more flex in your stick, the lie of your blade might feel a little different on the ice, right? So it's just a lot of crazy, weird stuff like that. All the little intricacies of the game that sometimes people don't realize.
Yeah, that's what's so amazing about hockey is what it takes, not just from equipment, but preparation. People are always surprised to find that many times, you've got a game in the evening where you're going to be just pumping those legs like crazy, and yet that morning you had a skate. Let's talk about this a little bit. How did you prepare for a game mentally and physically, and even maybe some of the fun things like I've heard about sewer ball, to keep guys loose? What was it like on game day?
Yeah, game day, home games, I would always like to get there probably 3.5 hours early, and I would love to play ping pong. And in fact, like we had a table, and we actually got to be so competitive a couple of years. We made like almost like a king of the hill bracket where, you could challenge guys that were either 1 or 2 spots ahead of you. And if they didn't accept your challenge in 24 hours, you got to move up the depth chart. And we had one year where like ping pong got so serious that, guys would be pissed off before games playing each other. You might, I remember plenty of times going on the ice with Brandon Marino wanting to shoot a puck at him in warm up because he beat me in ping pong before the game. But I've always been super competitive, and I like to also try to take my mind off of hockey, kind of until a certain point before the game. So I wasn't overthinking, right? So I would try to, obviously, drink water. I'd always go to Casa for my pregame meal. If the games were at home, I'd get the Pollo Romano. I'd go to Stellhorn and get it, even for road games if we were leaving the day of. And, you just try to get into a little bit of a routine. And that way, if something goes wrong or you don't feel right, then you kind of have an idea of what part of your routine that you need to tweak, or why you didn't feel the way, or why you felt the way you did. And I think that's a good thing to know for young hockey players at any level is if you don't have a routine and you don't feel good, you don't know what to change. Right. So but definitely like to, kind of just relax or, think about ping pong or sewer ball and then, or whatever it was, my sticks, not think too much about hockey until probably right after sewer ball where you're getting ready to go on the ice for warm up. That's when I'd come in, when I was putting my equipment on, start thinking about the game. Obviously the coaches always have a scouting report up. So I would always go through in my head, every phase of the scouting report, just mentally, just to kind of prepare, and then always think about my first shift, right? Like always visualize, what I'm going to do on my first shift, not think too far ahead, and just always believe that, hey, I'm going to go out and have a really good first shift. This is what's going to happen. I'm going to have a big hit. I'm going to get a shot on goal. Kind of break it down real specifically, to give me kind of something to focus on, because it's really easy to lose focus, especially when you're playing in front of 8,000 people and your friends and family are in the crowd, and you're trying to get tickets for everybody. So always try to find a way to think about something that I was going to do on that first shift, and then just go out and play the game. And I was lucky I had a chaplain at this is when I was playing the North American League that would come in and talk to our team about breathing and talking about like how to handle your anger. And one thing that he always said was, anytime you're angry, just close your eyes and breathe in and picture the picture the ocean tide kind of coming into the beach, and then breathe out and push the water back out and release all your anger. And anytime I had a bad shift or maybe something didn't go right, or I had some negative energy, I would try to go back and breathe and just focus on my next shift. And there was a lot of guys that, I felt bad for that they struggle. And there's a lot of people like that can't control their emotions or their anger. And, you see them, and it's a struggle for them, but I was able to at least kind of, control myself sometimes emotionally. And I needed to, because of the way I played. Right. So that's kind of a little bit how I prepare. I know, Brett Smith, the former team, like there was whoever my stallmate was, I'd always, before we played sewer ball, I'd always have a really goofy question for him. And it was only the guy that sat next to me. And I sat in the corner of the room. So there was only one guy that I could share that experience with. And they probably thought I was really crazy, because I would ask some really bizarre questions sometimes, but it's funny. You get to know your teammates. Like I'd always ask, stuff like, if you had to pick the top 3 guys that you think will be in jail in the next 5 years, and or just if top 3 best looking guys on the team, and you see some of the looks I get, but by the end of the year, you get to know that guy next to you pretty well, and some of the questions that and I'll still get texts from guys that'll say, man, I miss your questions before the games. It used to make me laugh, and just, understand that you don't have to take it too serious, right? Like we're out there to have fun, but, some of the guys that I guess over prepare or, can't release that nervous energy in a positive way. It can kind of get to you.
Well, that's great stuff. And, what's interesting is great to hear about, your visualizations, both not only, dealing with anger, but visualizations, having that mental movie of what you want to do on the ice. I think those are great tools. And we talk about, the preparation for a game. One of the things I think that fans are always curious about is in that warm-up sequence before a game, when everybody's just shooting around, and you see guys stretching out by the red line there. Is there any intimidation factor that you're trying to get across to another team, or is it just go out and have, some focus time getting some shots on the goal?
Yeah, I think it's a focus thing. I mean, I don't think I ever I never went out and tried to intimidate anybody. Because they would probably laugh at my face. I was 5'11", 185 pounds, right? Like, I didn't want people to be intimidated by me until they were 5 seconds into a fight.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I always felt like the guys that were the biggest talkers weren't the toughest guys. It was the quiet ones that you kind of had to worry about, right? But in warm-ups, I would always, try to focus on, obviously it's really for the goalies, right? And people forget about this. There's some guys that want to go, bar down and look great in warm-ups, and I think it's, your goalie is the most important player on your team, and you want your goalie to be able to feel the puck, and that's what I try to communicate to my spaceman team is, don't shoot the puck 6 feet over the net in warm-ups. Like, try to put the puck in the goalie's glove or hit him right in the blocker every time. Glove or blocker every time. And it just creates a little bit of a focus before the game. So they're not out there, looking for the cute blonde in the stands or, again, you want something to focus on. And maybe that's different for everybody, right? Maybe that's, hey, I need to catch, every pass on my backhand and get my hands going, or, I need to take 3 hard laps to get the lactic acid, out of my legs from the night before. Whatever it is, you should have a focus in your warm up. And, obviously it's fun to warm up too, because you're not playing yet. You have 15 minutes to get the blood flowing. So it needs to be fun, and you don't want to take it too serious. But definitely always want to have something to focus. And I would always just try to, especially in the first few drills, like hit the goalie right in the glove or blocker, never miss the net and warm up. That's always a pet peeve. And then I'd always, at home, I'd always take a kick shot and try to hit the net at the far end right before I got off the ice, which is always just a little game that Aaron and I always played and bet on. The Joe Franke's son, one of the assistant equipment managers. We'd always have a little deal if I could hit the net, hit the far end of the ice with my kick shot. But other than that, it was just, a little bit of focus, a little bit of fun, but don't take it too serious.
Did you ever have a favorite team that you played against? Like, there was just an opponent that you seemed to, rise to another level with?
Rapid City was one of those teams that it was like, playing a game of backyard baseball against the other neighborhood kids. Or it was just like, that driveway basketball game against, against some of your classmates that goes too far. It always felt like it was like that competitive, that competitiveness or that will to win every time we played Rapid City. And that was always a team that I loved playing against, because it felt like you needed to win. And sometimes what really turned me off at the pro level, and it's a shame, is you have guys that are motivated for different reasons. Mm-hmm. And that's what I miss about college hockey, is like you needed to win every game because you only had 25 of them. Yep. Right. And that's what I miss the most about playing, is the playoffs, where you have to win for your season to continue, or, you have to play well to get a job the next year. And, the guys that don't perform in the playoffs usually have a little bit of a harder time getting contracts the following season. So I always felt like, we played Rapid City our first year. They won this in the Central League, and we had won in the IHL. And our opening night, our home opener was against Rapid City. It was kind of like the battle of the champions, and they kicked our butt. And that year they actually knocked us out of the playoffs. And then the next year we played them in the second round, and first round, and ended up winning the cup, and we had to go through them. But I remember those games and just having so much fun, because it felt like there was so much on the line, and we didn't like each other. And that was probably my favorite. That was probably the team that I enjoyed playing against the most.
Now, your scraps are pretty legendary. You had some great scraps throughout your career. Did you have like an all-time favorite scrap or a favorite dance partner? Like you knew it was just going to be on. I mean, the way that you were able to motivate the team by not being afraid to take on the big guy. I mean, you could just see it lifted the team every time you were out there in the ice and got in a scrap. Did you have a favorite one?
I would say the most memorable was probably I fought Justin Sawyer. I fought Sawyer, and it was the year 2012. We were up 3-0 in the series against Wichita. It was Game 4. It was a Saturday night in Fort Wayne, and really wanted to close the deal Saturday night, right? So you could go out and have a good time, on Saturday night with the city. And, Game 5 was Monday night, which was still at home, but we were down, I think, 3 goals in that game. And I remember trying to get Sawyer to fight me, and he wouldn't fight me, obviously, because, they're up. And I finally said something that I probably shouldn't have said, but I said it to his whole bench. So he had no choice, but that fight was probably, a good minute, and, definitely gave us some energy. Unfortunately, we lost the game, and I ended up breaking my thumb in the fight. Didn't know it was broke until like June that summer. They thought it was like a sprain, but that was probably the most memorable because, sometimes people forget, hockey fans do, is sometimes it's hard to get in a fight, right? You can't always just go out and ask somebody, or, they don't understand that, probably 80% of the fights that happen aren't really caused by like emotion. It's more of a tactical deal, right? And I would say there's times where, yes, you hit a guy and he hits you back and you're just like, we're going to go. Or, most of it's because something happens on the ice, or your teammate gets hit, or you need to atone for something from, 3 games ago, or you're just trying to spark some energy and, you're really not kicked off or emotionally, wanting to punch someone in the face. You're just trying to create a spark. And so that was always something that, you had to be creative. You couldn't just go out and ask somebody to fight. You had to find a way to entice them, right? And that was always like a cat and mouse game. Like, okay, the guy's not going to fight me. How do I kind of force him to, right? And so that was probably my most memorable. And I think a lot of people talk about that or remember that fight, at least, because I think a lot of people were at that game.
Yeah, and you can just see how it lifts the team. There's just something when a guy's willing to put his body out there and do that. You always were a great emotional leader. And speaking of that, how did you get the nickname Schrocky Balboa?
I don't know. I used to be called Schrocker, and I think what happened was there was the blog, which I didn't read because I think there's so much negativity on the Fort Wayne blogs. But I remember there was a lady, I think her name was Katie Stein. She did some pretty cool like pictures and tweaked the pictures and would send them to me. And I still actually have some of them hanging, and she made some posters for me, like some Schrocky posters that are pretty comical. But I remember getting in a fight with Jason Goulet, and he was probably the scariest guy in the league my rookie year. He played for Quad City. He was tough as nails, and we got in a fight. It was one of those, it was one of the 20% ones where, I was really ticked off, and I was going to the net trying to score, and he hit me. I didn't even know who it was. I just threw my stuff down and then realized it was, this guy's like 6'7", and he's one of the toughest guys in the IHL. And I remember just throwing as fast as I could so he couldn't punch me. All right, like your offense is your best defense.
Yep.
And I think somebody put in the blog, or my dad might have it saved, or or it's like it looked like Schrocky was trying to start a lawnmower, and we need to call him, Schrocky Balboa or something. And I think it started from there, but I'm not entirely sure if it was before that. But I think that's how it all got started. But it's kind of a funny nickname, and it's always stuck.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, people had T-shirts. I mean, the Komets had T-shirts. To this day, I think somewhere my daughter has a Schrocky Balboa T-shirt there, which really goes to the fact the fans and the city, they really embraced, your underdog, scrappy, hardworking, that hustling style of play. And you're always going to be a fan favorite. I mean, no matter where you go, people's like, oh, there's Schrocky. What was it like? It's kind of a three-part question. What was it like to play in front of your hometown? What was it kind of like to be the face of Fort Wayne, where everybody knows you? And how did it feel to be inducted into the Hall of Fame?
Wow, that's I think it was such a blessing. I mean, I still have to pinch myself being able to play for a team that I always dreamed about playing on, right? I remember working in a warehouse in college it was in juniors, and thinking, gosh, I want to work really hard at hockey, so I can play. I can come back to Fort Wayne and play in Fort Wayne and not have to work in a warehouse, for the rest of my life, and thinking, gosh, how cool would it be to come back and play in Fort Wayne? That's when I actually started to become, when hockey became more serious and I was moving away and playing, and that was kind of a goal that, again, I always pictured what it would be like. I remember I'd go on runs in my neighborhood and, think about what it would feel like to get in a fight and have 8,000 people, cheering for you in your hometown, and just getting goosebumps, when I used to think about those things, and that they kind of came to fruition. And then the whole, being able to, I'll never forget going, it was like early in my career. It's probably like halfway through my rookie year. And, not proud about this, but I would get 5-hour energies before the game, before I had like a nutritionist that I would talk to and tell me that I shouldn't be doing that stuff before games. I went to a Walgreens, on the way to the rink. And I remember there was a young kid and his dad were there, and this is still my rookie year. So I still a nobody. And, the kid looks up and he goes, "Dad, that's Kaleigh Schrock." And to me, I was like, holy hell, this kid knows my name. I still didn't. And the dad said, "Hey, we appreciate the way you play. He said, we're cheating on the Komets tonight. We're going to go to the truck show, which is in the Coliseum the same time as the game." But to me, it was like, wow, that's when I really, it finally kicked in that, that the fans kind of, appreciated my player, at least knew who I was, because I was so naive back then. I was just trying to do everything I could to make the team. And it was so easy for me to play hard every night because, you're playing in front of your friends and family every night. I mean, how can you not get up for that? So I was always lucky that, I had almost like an energy boost every game because of the situation that I was in, right? That other people didn't have. And, I can't say that, I always try to work hard, and I've always loved the game of hockey, but I'm pretty sure that, there were times where, if I would have been on another team, I don't want to, say this for certain, but if, maybe I wouldn't have tried as hard if I wasn't playing every time in front of my, my dad, or every time in front of, some of my high school buddies that I had got tickets for, that it was easy for me. Everyone's, you work so hard. Well, it never felt like hard work, honestly. And to be inducted into the Hall of Fame is just a bonus, and it's something I'll forever be grateful for. And I don't know that I necessarily, skill-wise, there's no question I don't deserve to be with that group of players. But what I'm most proud of is I do think that I did embody what it meant to be a Fort Wayne Komet, right? Definitely a blue-collar town, blue-collar fans, and I was a blue-collar player. And, I know that there's a lot of people in this city that they work really hard to work so they can buy tickets to come and watch hockey games. And, I just wanted to make those people proud. And I want the induction to belong to all those people, right? That helped me get to where I'm at today, because I'm not highly skilled. I'm not highly intelligent. I've just worked hard and had a really good supporting cast, right? So, and that's what everybody needs. Everybody needs good people around them. So I'm very lucky that the fans and my friends and my family think of me the way they do. And it's really helped me in my path. And, I owe everything really to everyone who supported me, that allowed me to be in this position.
Well, you definitely deserve it. I mean, your heart and soul, like I said, it not only lifted your team, but, you were able to lift a city. And, that's just a powerful thing. And, you can't really even explain it, but, it was your passion and your style. It resonated so much with people in the stands and the kids. And so, really you're an inspiration to all those people.
Well, thank you. It does mean a lot. And, I'm just so lucky that people think of me that way, and that I can have that impact. And, I hope that, I can still make that impact on the kids that I coach and the kids at the rink. And I hope that they still see my passion for the game, and I hope to share and grow that passion, and hopefully give another kid the same opportunity that I had at even a higher level. Right. And that's why I'm doing what I do now. And so very lucky, but I appreciate, I appreciate that. And again, it's like, sometimes I have to pinch myself, because it's like, there's a lot of kids in Fort Wayne, Indiana that would love to share or have what I've experienced.
Awesome. What do you consider to be a few of your greatest victories or accomplishments? It doesn't have to be hockey related, but what are things that, just stand out to you? I want to be remembered for blank, or the greatest victory or accomplishment was blank.
Wow. That's a great question. I think one of them would be, I did in March of 2016, I did the Reason to Dance charity event for Riley Children's Hospital. And I actually, the people around me in the city helped raise $38,000 for Riley Children's Hospital. And I actually, won the event, because I'm super competitive. So that had something to do with it. And there was, 6 local celebrities from Indianapolis, and the event was actually in Indianapolis. And Tara Brantley, who's on the news, one of the news anchors here in Fort Wayne, she and I were the Fort Wayne kind of local celebrities. And I would say that was probably the proudest moment of my life, because you had to do 2. It was like a Dancing with the Stars event, so I had to dance, and I am totally not a dancer, right? Totally afraid of it. So I had to go outside of my comfort zone. But when, we had to do some visits with the kids at Riley Children's Hospital, and it really put things in perspective. There's kids out there that, they're not sure if they're going to be here tomorrow, or they're not sure that, they don't have the same privilege of having a healthy childhood, right? Even if they do overcome their sickness, it's a very, it's very tough on their families, and those kids just they're so strong, and but they don't have the same opportunities that the kids like I had, right? And so it put things in perspective, and it made me just kind of, okay, why am I nervous about dancing when this kid's nervous about being alive tomorrow or being healthy? And it was another one of those deals where it showed how supportive the city of Fort Wayne and the surrounding areas were. My dad, who worked in economic development when I was younger, helped me raise a lot of money. We did a dance at a Komet game. But it's like when you compare, Fort Wayne to Indianapolis, it's like you can get lost in a city, Indy, but Fort Wayne's just, it's big enough to do some damage when you're fundraising, but it's small enough to have that, those connections and to get that, to get the support from your local community. It was really the proudest moment of my life with the reason to dance and raising the most money. And we, as a group, we raised over $100,000, which helped Riley Children's Hospital, support a new staff member, which obviously helped those kids down there and give them more attention that they absolutely deserve. So that was, looking back at everything, that was probably, I would say, something that I would hang my hat on. And obviously, second fiddle would be the championships. I'd have to say my national championship at Neumann College, where we're just a team that's a little bit above 500, and we spring off. We go on a run, and I think we win our last 14 games, and upset the number one team in the nation in their rink in overtime, and get to go to Lake Placid and win a national championship in the same dressing room that the 1980 Olympic team was in when they won the gold medal. That kind of, that opened up the phone lines for the Komets and kind of put me on the map. I think if we lose, or, I'm not a national champion, I don't know if all this other stuff comes to fruition. And then, being able to win 2 championships with the Komets is something that, I'll never forget. And were 2 of the greatest nights of my life. But you can put obviously the Hall of Fame induction was right behind that. So, a lot of great moments, and hopefully there's a lot more to come, right? And that's the great thing about coaching and still being involved is, you're always looking for those moments, and you want to get back to that euphoric feeling of what you felt when, you go through those things. And it's a challenge, but you see what, when you battle through that adversity, how the feeling you get from it, it's kind of addicting. It makes you want to do it. It makes you want to do it all over again. And the last thing I'll add to that, I know I'm rambling on, but the real hero in my life is my dad. And I know before I mentioned Ronick and Colin Chin when I was growing up as kind of your boyhood heroes, or somebody you aspire to be like. But really, and what I'm so grateful for, and both my parents allowed this to happen. And I hope if there's hockey parents or parents listening, whether their kids are in sports or not, I think what allowed a guy like me to have some success in my life, where, like I said, I definitely wasn't the most skilled or most intelligent guy in anything that I've ever done, right? But what my parents allowed me to do at a young age was they allowed me to fail, and they allowed me to experience bad times. And as a hockey director, I see it so many times where I see parents get in the way, and I don't have my own kids, so I got to be careful what I say here. I can't imagine how hard and difficult it is to have the love of your life and to see them kind of struggle. But that failure and those times where I had to face some adversity, where I was cut from a team, or I didn't do well on a test, and kind of learning how to pick myself up off the mat and go at it again. It gave me a fighting chance against all these guys that I got to play with or against, and to be at the same level, because I definitely wasn't probably on the same plane as them as far as just straight skill or hockey. But I was able to outwork, and when things didn't go my way, it never it never prevented me from quitting, right? And I think I owe that to my parents for not getting in the way and not getting into the politics of the youth sports when I was younger, and letting me figure it out on my own, but being there for me to support me, obviously, when I was down, but not trying to do too much for me, right?
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that I appreciated about you, and I think it has to do with your upbringing, is that you were a leader on the ice and off the ice too. And we live in a culture today where we need leaders. Leadership is such an important thing. How are you enjoying the transition from being a player to a coach?
I love it. I mean, it's I love it because I still remember what it felt like to be a player, and I was on the phone today. Luckily, I'm able to work during these times, right? Because I'm trying to recruit, and luckily, my job at the Icehouse as the hockey director, you're always planning for next season. So luckily, I'm in a situation where I'm still able to work from home and be productive. But it's so much fun for me. It's one of those deals where, like I said, I'm trying to share my experiences and allow others to feel the same way I did, right? Because at the end of the day, we all want to feel good. That's why we live. We all want to feel like, like we belong to something, or that, we want a sense of worth, right? We want to help other people. We want to feel appreciated. We want to have value, and I understand that, and I want to, teach younger people, put them on the right path to be good, to be good adults, right? And it's so much fun when you're working with kids because they're in that stage where, there's no time to be, cynical. They're still innocent to the world. And what we do as coaches and teachers are so important. And even if they don't have a great home life and they, maybe mom and dad aren't doing the right things, but there's still something that they can learn that they can use the rest of their life that could make the biggest difference in the world. Because as it's all those little things, are those little tweaks or little intricacies throughout the way that make the biggest differences in the world, right? And just being able and knowing that you're just so close to teaching somebody those things, or giving somebody the opportunity to turn the light bulb on and make a positive change is so much fun. I mean, I can't tell you how excited I get just talking about it.
Yeah, and one of the things I love about sports, and I think it's in general, is it allows you to be a part of something bigger than yourself. I think that's so needed today, to know that you're part of something beyond yourself. It guards us against selfishness. There's that, great value of being a part of a team. Last two questions is going to be, what advice would you give to a young aspiring athlete? I mean, there's some athletes listening out there, the kids are working from home right now. The students are, having in-room classrooms at their houses today, so they'll be listening to this. What's one piece of advice you would give to a young aspiring athlete?
Yeah, it's the one thing I would say is the quicker you fall in love with whatever you're doing, the more you're going to enjoy it and the harder you're going to work at it. And I guess the trick is for a lot of people, well, what if I don't know what I want to do? And it's try new things and try to find something that you're passionate about, that you can, that comes from the heart and that you really enjoy doing. Right. And that's the struggles. You see so many people, I don't know what the answer is, but it's like they don't find out what they really want to do, or they're too afraid to try to do it. Right. And I think that everybody should really give it a shot, especially when they're younger, and do the things inside of that inside of what you love, because anything you love doing, right? There's always things that there's negatives, right? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, I have the best wife in the world, right? And I love her to death, but it's just like being married, or it's just like having a job. There's always things that you wish you could change about something or somebody, but be great at those things. Be great at doing the things that other people don't want to do, right? And people are going to notice that, right? So, like, for me in hockey, I was never a big goal scorer. And so I had to be great at doing things that other people didn't want to do. I had to be able to block shots. I had to kill penalties, right? So there was always, there was always nights where I wish I could score a goal. It's so much fun scoring a goal. But hey, I got to do what I love since I was 6 until almost 30 years, because I became great at doing things that other people didn't want to do, and it got me noticed, right? And that could be in your relationship, right? I mean, I was saying with my wife, if there's stuff that I'm not really a big I don't really like to go out all the time and socialize, but when she wants me to, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to have fun because I care about the relationship, and I want to make her happy, right? And so it's about making those sacrifices too, because in anything you love, don't be fooled. There's always things that it's not a dream world, right? In anything you love to do, there's always things that you're going to have to do that you don't like, whether it's your relationship, your job, your hobby, and get good at doing those things that other people aren't willing to do, and you might be able to do what you love. Right? I
absolutely love that. We might have a second nickname for you instead of Schrocky, Balboa, Dr. Schrock. The doc is in the house. But I love that.
I'm not smart enough to be a doctor.
But I tell you what, it's just so good because, you're giving what I feel is like one of the best leadership principles in the world. If you want to be a leader, if you want to stand out, you got to do things that other people aren't willing to do. And that's how greatness comes. And I think that's some of the best advice I have ever heard. And I appreciate you sharing that. Our last question is a two-parter. How can people learn more about you and the Fort Wayne Spacemen? And is there anything else that you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the Spacemen, you can go to fwspacemen.com. We've got a website, not to get too technical, but you can go there and check that out, and it'll have information on there about the team. And definitely encourage people to follow us on Twitter. I think the handle is FW Spacemen. I could be wrong. You might have to double check that one for me, but follow the team, and that's how they can kind of follow me. I'm not a huge social media guy, but at Schrocky79, if people want to keep tabs, sometimes I'll throw out the occasional tweet and just stay on social media to see what's going on in this crazy world right now. But that's really all that that I have to add. And I just want to say, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate talking hockey, and I guess a little bit of life goals too, right? And
love it.
And it's fun to have these conversations. And anytime you want to have me on, I'm more than welcome to come on. I know we didn't get as much into some of the stories as you may have liked, and I apologize for that. But it was really fun being on, and thanks for allowing people to listen in.
Well, thank you. Thanks for investing in all of our listeners today. Again, I want to thank our guest today has been Kaleigh Schrock. I also want to thank our sponsors, ZionMissionaryChurch.net, NeuroPowerSource.com, our podcast producer, Drew Kiespert, film director, Jolynn Thomas. Be sure to rate us and subscribe to the Pressing the Limits podcast. And for more ways to watch and listen to this podcast, check out the Pressing the Limits podcast website.